Welcome to Inside the Birds. Our big game coverage is presented by Green Lawn Fertilizing. We're very excited to have Green Lawn Fertilizing on board to bring you guys all of the Birds coverage leading off to kickoff. Hello, everyone. Welcome to a special edition of Inside the Birds, another playoff roundtable. This one's a Super Bowl roundtable. The Eagles and Chiefs will go at it once again, second time in 3 years. They will go at it in New Orleans for Super Bowl LIX. And for this roundtable, we bring back a friend of the show and, of course, a former Eagle, former tight end for the Eagles, Clay Harbor. So Geoff Mosher, Adam Caplan, and Clay Harbor. And we are going to roundtable it out, folks, and get into this matchup of the Eagles and Chiefs. All three of us are fresh out of the Senior Bowl from Mobile. So, Clay, we really appreciate the time. It's always good to catch up with you and get your insights on the Eagles. We know that you also do a lot of Bears work in your hometown of Chicago. So now we're going to ask you to talk about a team that's fun to watch. Is that good for you?
Oh, please, guys, it's tough. We were in the draft prep after that Washington Hail Mary debacle. You know, we start. Okay, it's time to go to the draft and a 10-game losing streak. Yeah, you guys had a 10-game winning streak. Chicago had a 10-game losing streak, so it's brutal. But you guys know I follow my Eagles. FlyEaglesFly. I'm really excited to talk about this one because I really like some of these matchups that I'm seeing from the Eagles' perspective. And if some of these guys can win these matchups, I think this is a very winnable game.
Oh, awesome. Good start. Because here's what I want to do with this show with Clay and you, Adam, and myself, right? I wanted this to be a true roundtable discussion where I'm going to throw out 3 or 4 question topics, and then we're just all going to give our feelings on it based on what Clay said, some of the matchups. So I want to start with this. And Adam, I'll start with you. Clay, you follow, and then I'll give mine. Which team has the better personnel? Adam, who's the better personnel when you look at the rosters?
Which I've done. I would say the Eagles overall. Now, the games aren't won that way, just so folks understand. It's not, the way that it goes down. We all look at it that way. Oh, well, if they have better roster, they should win. But it's all about matchups, coaching, right, schemes, and execution. But there are certain areas where the Chiefs are better. But overall, the Eagles have a better roster. And quite frankly, it's not what we knew to start the season. That's probably the number one reason the Eagles are so much better than we thought. They've won 16 out of 17 games. Because the roster is so much better. And everybody knows the story about Zach Bond and others who are well ahead of schedule. That's how you become really, really good, when it's better than you thought.
Absolutely. Clay, when you look at 53 versus 53, who's got the better 53?
I'm not just being biased here. I really think the Eagles do. And obviously the Chiefs have a great roster, but when you look at the Eagles' offensive line, and obviously we hope Jurgens and Dickerson can play, and it's trending that way, correct? That these guys are both going to be healthy for the game. And then you look at their playmakers, these top 3. I mean, Devontae Smith, A.J. Brown, Dallas Goedert. I know they got Travis Kelce, Saquon Barkley. I mean, you can't compare the skill positions there. I mean, it's by far and away. And I know you get, like I said, I know you got Trav, but so much better. Offensive line, I think the Chiefs had a couple injuries, and when the Caliendo guy last week had to come in against Buffalo, I mean, to me, that was a glaring weakness. So that's a big hole there, and one of the Eagles' strengths. If you put Jalen Carter, even Milton Williams, Jordan Davis on this guy, I think you're going to get a lot of pressure. It's going to be hard to run the ball in the middle because of that situation. Then you have to move Tooney out to tackle. Jawan Taylor is a guy that's, he's iffy. I remember him from his time in Jacksonville. A lot of penalties, giving up 7 sacks this year. I think is a guy that's shaky, and I'm sure we'll talk a little bit more about his role in this game. But as holistically, Trent McDuffie is great, but the Eagles' defense as well, with the way that backfield has come together, the linebacker crew. I know Nakobe Dean is out, but Brooks, I think, played better last week and had a couple big plays, obviously the big fumble. So I'm going Eagles here, all around roster. And obviously there's more to it, like Adam alluded to, than just the roster, who has a better roster, tons of variables, but I would go Eagles.
Yeah. So I think Adam made a great point that's really worthy of this discussion. And that's, well, first I'll start with this. I think this is and I didn't think I'd ever say this after 2017, especially because that roster was not only good, but deep. very deep, maybe even deeper than this team. This team hasn't had to deal with as many injuries at one time as the 2017 team had to deal with. But this Eagles roster is the best Eagles roster, at least the starting, especially the starters that I've seen, from the offensive line to the defensive line to the secondary, which is probably the best Eagles secondary we've seen in quite some time, when you count the safeties and the corners, and obviously having a guy like Saquon Barkley. But to Adam's point, it's not always decided by the best 53. And I think that there's something to be said about this Chiefs 53 roster not even being their best 53. When you look at their Super Bowl teams, with Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid, I don't know that this is their best 53. But to Adam's point, they won 15 games. They technically went 15-1 because who cares about the season finale when Carson Wentz and the backup started. So that really shows you how good this Chiefs team is as a collective. They might be a better collective whole than the sum of the individual parts. I always botch up that analogy, but everybody understands what I'm trying to say. So that leads me to our next topic, and our question is, which team is the better coach team? Who has the coaching advantage in this game, Adam?
Well, you're starting with big. Well, it's interesting. It's a good way to phrase that. Is there one? Big Red, obviously, what he's done has been incredible, particularly after he left Philadelphia to go to Kansas City. When people were told Andy to take time off, he's like, "I'm not doing that. I'm a coach." We know what's happening here. They're going for the first repeat in NFL history in terms of winning Super Bowls. But I would say overall, Geoff, you and I have talked about this throughout the season. The coaching has been spectacular, particularly on defense. They got the real Fangio after running his scheme for 3 years. And he's running it his way, comparatively to the guys who were doing it before. And this defensive staff overall is really good. And this is not, by the way, this is not a knock on this Chiefs staff. The Chiefs staff is very good. It's a little bit more subjective because it's really hard to evaluate that stuff. It's all you can do is about performance.
Mm-hmm.
This team defense cannot be as good as it is without great coaching. The coaching on defense has been absolutely phenomenal. You could argue some of the best coaching in the National Football League this season.
Absolutely, especially when not coaching isn't just X's and O's, Adam, right? It's talent development. And certainly we have seen the Eagles take players who had very few expectations, Clay, and I'll go to you on this, and all of a sudden become sensations like Zach Bond, or just really solid players. We didn't know what Nakobe Dean was going to do when he stayed healthy. And he's really, I know he's injured now, but he really fit the scheme. Milton Williams has emerged. So Adam makes the point defensively. Certainly the coaching job has been great. What do you see when you just take it all into one big picture, though?
Man, this one is tough, but I got to go with the Chiefs in Big Red. And just because of, obviously you're going for a three-peat, the experience he's had in these high leverage games. And you look at one stat that I found that was interesting is Nick Sirianni is 5-1 when he's had an extra week of prep. The one loss, the Super Bowl against Andy Reid. And Andy is obviously, we know how good he is after a bye week. So both these guys are excellent when you give them extra time to prep. And to me, that shows a lot of a good coach, because like, what are you doing in the off time? You got extra time to game plan. How are you going to attack this team? I like what Sirianni's done. I really do like Kellen Moore, how he was able to kind of shift this offense, that run-oriented, the number one rushing attempt offense in the league, and the number 32 passing attempt offense league, but it's effective. He knows his strengths. He knows his weaknesses. And then Vic Fangio, like Adam alluded to, you can't say enough about how he's been able to just turn this defense around, the number one defense in the league. But Spags, how much big game experience does Spags have? Have we seen time in and time out? You look at him flustering Josh Allen on big plays, high leverage plays, that corner cat blitz that they send at the end of the game. Obviously, Dalton Kincaid could make that catch, and maybe it's not known as such a good call. But I got to go with the Chiefs, and predominantly Coach Reid and Spags. And I think that it's closer than people might think, but I got to go with the Chiefs on this one.
Yeah, and one thing I'll throw into that to finish this off is that sometimes we forget about the third phase, and no disrespect to Michael Clay, who I think has done, as far as the kickoff coverage units and return units, punt coverage and return, a pretty good job. But Dave Tobe has been doing this for a long time. He is a master special teams coach, and we know how big special teams comes into play in Super Bowls. It certainly did 2 years ago when Kadarius Toney returned that punt inside the Eagles 5, and the Chiefs scored, I believe, the go-ahead touchdown on that. So that always comes into play. So still, yeah, we'll give the Chiefs the advantage there, but obviously the Eagles very solid and have done an amazing coaching job all year long, especially on defense. Let's talk matchup. And Clay, I'll start with you and then go to Adam. Give me, in your mind, the critical matchup as far as one position group versus another that's going to decide this game.
Oh, I mean, this one to me is easy. It's the D line of the Eagles versus the offensive line of the Chiefs, because Vic's not going to send a ton of pressure. Patrick Mahomes, when he is not dirty, when he doesn't have guys in his face, I mean, it's incredible to see the difference in Patrick Mahomes. And it's funny, his first time scoring over 30 points this year was last week against the Bills. They're not a crazy scoring offense, but here's a stat that I thought was interesting. So his QBR fell 20 points when he was pressured this year. And to me, I'm like, what, 20 points? So you got to get pressure. And to go deeper into that, I think the biggest matchup, in my opinion, is Nolan Smith. Nolan Smith has the opportunity to go against Juwan Taylor all day. Okay, Juwan Taylor is a solid player, but he's given up 7 sacks this year. Can you consistently beat Juwan Taylor? Nolan Smith has come on strong of late. I really love his quickness. I think it's a good matchup for Nolan Smith because Juwan Taylor isn't a guy that handles those quick pass rushers well. So I want to see what Juwan Taylor can do there. And then to finish out, obviously, the defensive line, we got Creed Humphrey, Trey Smith. Okay, 2 great guys, 2 players that are really tough. But then again, like I said, you got Caliendo had to come in there against the Mike Caliendo and gave up 10 pressures. Pressures versus the Bills. So
might as well put Caliendo out there.
Yeah, we will see, Frank.
Whoever's on Caliendo, you got to win. I don't care if it's Williams. I don't care if it's Carter, Trey Smith, Creed Humphreys. These guys can play. They've done it year in and year out. They're high caliber offensive guards in center. You got to take advantage of Caliendo. You got to get pressure on him, whoever it is.
Speaking of things that are green, if you're already stressing about your lawn this spring, head over to our friends at Green Lawn Fertilizing. They can help. They're based right here in the Philadelphia area. These guys are the experts in this region's conditions, including PA, New Jersey, and Delaware. They know how that tough drought was last year and created a custom blend and approach that will help your lawn recover. Everybody remembers last year, it looked like as dry as the desert, just one brown lawn after another brown lawn, no rain. It killed neighborhoods. It made our beautiful lawns look, well, not so beautiful. So be sure to sign up now and receive 10% off at Green Lawn Fertilizing. And I'm told this is a very limited time offer. So head to the link in our description or greenlawnfertilizing.com/insidethebirds to take advantage. You got to be stressed out. Be stressed out about Jake Elliott lining up for a 55-yard field goal in the big game. That should be the only thing you're stressed about this season. Call Green Lawn Fertilizing today. To Clay's point, like you would love if you were Andy Reid and the offensive coaching staff to say, can we get away with singling up somebody on Jalen Carter like Trey Smith so that we can double, right, Milton Williams with our center, Creed Humphrey, and our struggling left guard. But I don't know. All Vic has to do is maybe show 5 up front and make him get into 5 out, even if you don't bring that 5th, right? You've already sort of changed the protection, and I have a feeling Vic's going to do a little bit. He may show some sim pressure or bring pressure, or well, that's 4, but he may try to make them think he's bringing 5 and just bring 4 just to mess up the protection and keep that extra body off of Milton Williams.
Well, by the way, let's take this one level further. Joe Tooney, their left guard, is playing left tackle, okay?
Yeah.
So Greg Cosell, Clay, sends us his notes to Geoff and I just so we could prep before we do shows with him. And Greg said there have been some snaps that were good, some snaps were not quite as good. So you just talked about Mike Caliendo, who gave up those pressure numbers are ridiculous. That's not good.
Yeah.
They're horrible,
So you've got a new left guard and you got a left guard playing left tackle. Advantage Eagles. Okay, advantage Eagles. Mm-hmm. So that's, and you're right. Vic just doesn't blitz. They're a bottom 5 pressure team in terms of blitzing. And he always says this, and most coaches will tell you this: if I can't get home with 4, I'm bringing 5. I can't get home with 5, I'm bringing 6. He's not going to do 6. Ain't going to happen. But he may have to bring 5 when he feels it. But I'm fascinated to see what happens here because the Mahomes factor. I know he's not a runner per se, but his back-breaking scrambles, I could just tell you from talking to defensive coaches, it's annoying. It's demoralizing. Clay, as a former player, I would ask you this question. I guess it's similar to like when you maybe you miss a chip or you miss a block and you go, man, that can't happen. Well, it's just like on third down, it's 3rd and 6, and you think you've got all the ground covered, but he seems to find something. I've not seen a quarterback do it quite like that.
No, and that's what makes him so special. And like you said, it's frustrating. You get everything covered up. Everything's there. You get a little pressure on him. Somehow he finds a way to either extend the play, dump the ball down, or either run for the first down himself. And I mean, those are devastating plays to the defense. So they got to have a plan for that. And you don't want to allot players when you're playing Mahomes to a spy situation and take him out of coverage, like you saw a lot with Jane Daniels. You're able to do that in certain situations. You can't do that with Patrick Mahomes. You got to be dialed up, and you got to get pressure with the front four. And you saw Mahomes' worst Super Bowl, the one he lost to the Buccaneers. What were they able to do? They were able to pressure him with 4. That's why, and obviously he had a bunch of receivers out. There were some drop balls here and there, but you were able to get him uncomfortable. You see when Brady lost Super Bowls, these great quarterbacks, the Giants. You're pressuring them with 4. There is nothing, I don't care how great of a quarterback you are in the NFL, if you're struggling to block the front 4 and you're not losing guys in coverage, you're not gonna have a great game. And I think the Eagles are set up in a good position. I love Joe Thuney. Fun fact, Joe Thuney, when I was with New England, I was never comfortable enough to get my own place. I lived with Joe Thuney. Me and him lived together out in North Attleboro. He was my roommate. Love Joe Thuney. We'd play beer pong after games. He's, after, a long week of practice, like a beer pong buddy. We're hanging out at the house, whatever, watching TV. Joe Thuney's a great guy. And this was when he was a rookie. And you saw his potential there, 3rd-round pick of the Patriots. And he comes in, he starts right away. Guys don't start right away with Bill Belichick at offensive line. And he's just a guy that was wise beyond his years. And obviously you see what he's grown into. But there are some snaps that he doesn't look great at left tackle. How do you expect a guy to go from interior line to offensive tackle? I don't know if you guys understand how crazy that is. Guys bump inside. You'll see a guy maybe go from wide receiver to tight end.
Right.
Cornerback to safety. You don't see safety to cornerback. You don't see tight end to wide receiver. You don't see center to tackle. Okay, right. So and there's nobody better at breaking down film than Greg Cosell. If Cosell is seeing something, it's there. That's what he does. He sits in the film room. He watches more film than NFL executives. And I mean, I've seen it too. Love Thuney, my old buddy, but there are some holes over there when he's on an island.
Right. And I don't think anybody can blame him. They know he's just giving it his best. Adam, do we know sort of the outlook on DJ Humphries maybe being able to return, or is this just
he's healthy? Yeah, he's over the hamstring. He's not even I don't even think he's on the injury report this week. It's just because he was down for a while, 4 weeks of the hamstring injury. Do they feel good enough to bring him up to put him back in as a starting left tackle? Because that he was brought in to save the left tackle position. They were through 2 guys, Wanye Morris and Sumatea, the 2nd round tackle from BYU, both got benched. So Clay's right, man. They got some problems on that left side. I know Vic does not want to blitz. That's fine. But Eagles have to win. It's real simple. The pass rush rate, they've got to win. That's the goal of this thing.
Give me another position group, Adam, that comes under the microscope. It could be for the Chiefs or it could be for the Eagles that you're thinking about in this game.
Oh, boy. This is fascinating because the Chiefs, this stunned me that they moved Trent McDuffie to the outside this season. He was the best nickel defender in the National Football League to start his career. And it's kind of worked out. It's not really what we thought would happen, but it's happened. You got to give Spags credit. Another reason to say he's great. He did something that other teams didn't think he could do, that McDuffie could play on the outside. Now, with that, Chamari Connor he'll play in big nickel and also as a nickel corner, or as Vic would call him, a nickel defensive back. I'm sorry, he's not a corner, as Vic Fangio would say. If you're a nickel, you're nickel. You're not a corner. Okay. So I would say watch Dallas Goedert, who's finally healthy, Clay. Okay, he's finally healthy. Clay, what a tight end could do to a safeties and linebackers who's pretty athletic and is a stud like this guy.
Absolutely. And you saw against Washington, he caught 7 of 8 targets. I mean, he was being looked at by Jalen early and often. I think that's going to be a big matchup in this game, and Dallas is going to have to show up. And I know that obviously Travis Kelce has come on strong. He looks like whenever it gets to the playoffs, whenever you think Kelce's having a down year, the guy always comes back and shows you why he is the greatest tight end of all time. So I think that that's going to be a huge matchup. Who wins the tight end matchup here? Can Goddard show that he is a premier tight end, caught 7 of 8 passes last week? And to your point with Trent McDuffie, he's a traveler. He's a traveling man. Lord, I was born rambling man, traveling man. Wrong lyrics. But he's going to travel. It's going to be A.J. Brown versus Trent McDuffie. And to even go a little deeper into the total matchup, those are 2 of the best in the game. A.J. Brown, get your popcorn ready, because you know Spags does like to blitz. He is going to put Trent McDuffie on an island here or there with A.J. Brown. And what does Jalen love when it's one-on-one coverage? Throw the ball to A.J. Throw the ball outside the numbers to A.J. Brown. So who's going to get the better of this matchup? I like A.J. Brown. I know people say his numbers were down this year. No, they weren't. He missed a couple games. He still had over 1,000 yards in his yards per route run. I love that stat. I know a lot of people might not understand it, but per route that you run, he's averaging 3.3 yards per route run, which is the 3rd highest since 2007. Since 2007 of a receiver. So when he's going out on routes, obviously the rushing team, Saquon, all that good stuff, number 1 defense, rushing defense, yards per carry versus number 1 offense, rushing offense. But A.J. Brown is going to have to make some plays on one of the best cornerbacks in this league.
I love it. 4th and 7, 31 yards, to your point, against the Commanders. What a gutsy call. And then a great throw, just a great throw by Jalen Hurts to put it right there for A.J. Brown. And we hadn't seen one in a while. It was almost like a reprisal in the offense now that, everybody was feeling good and healthy. And that was a swing part of that game for the Eagles. My thought on this, Clay, is sort of an extension of really what both of you guys said. My focus group, or my position group to focus on, and it's a little bit nebulous because the Eagles play a lot of zones, so it could be safety, line, but it's that interior coverage against Travis Kelce. Because the way I look at this game, you're right that the best quarterbacks, even Tom Brady, have always been rattled by 4-man pressure in the Super Bowl. That is absolutely true. But we've reached a point with Patrick Mahomes where he's dealing with tons of pressure on a weekly basis because those edge tackles that he has are not very good, and they haven't been for quite a while. And he is just used to getting the ball out of his hands, I think 2.67 seconds now. And he knows the pressure's coming. He knows it's coming from the edge. He manipulates the pocket really well. He gets out of the pocket really well. I'd be shocked if 4-man pressure from the Eagles leads to like 9 or 10. That game you were talking about a couple of years ago where the Buccaneers had him throwing passes like horizontally and over his head and doing all these. That was like the best performance I've ever seen from a bad quarterback that day. I mean, he's obviously a great quarterback, but that was a bad quarterbacking day for him against that Bucs defense, right? So they're in sync now. And to me, the Eagles all year long have closed passing lanes so well, and they've created turnovers so well. But every time I watch the Chiefs play, I say to myself, how the hell does Travis Kelce get open for 41 yards? Like, he's a Hall of Fame tight end. What is it that's going on?
Option routes, man.
Your coverage, right? I know. So this to me is the thing. You're gonna pressure Pat Mahomes. You're gonna get him on the run. You're gonna play too deep a lot. So you're not gonna be able to. You're gonna keep Worthy in front of you because that's what the Eagles do. You're gonna keep Marquise Brown in front of you because that's what the Eagles do. Just cover the interior of the field. Yes, Travis Kelce is gonna get his catches. Make the tackle. Get your hands on passes when you can, and try to flip the field if you can get a turnover. To me, that is the biggest part of this game is taking what the Chiefs do best and try to make them do it 70 to 60% less than they normally do. And that will be the way you can win this game. That's how I see it. So I like that matchup. I want to go to another question here. Adam, I'll start with you. Which team do you think can least afford to lose the turnover battle?
Oh, boy.
Because these are two teams that don't turn the ball over very much.
Loaded question. Yeah, I honestly.
And they take it away.
Yep, they do. Eagles really take it away in a big
Lately,
way.
especially, yeah.
It's just funny because I remember when Nick talked about it, he was asked two things early in the season: where the sacks and where the turnovers. And he said they'll come, and they sure have. It's remarkable. Who could least? I would say the Eagles, just because of the Mahomes factor, how great he is from coming from behind. He's great at it. He's one of the best in NFL history. I know that their offense, as you said, is not quite as potent as it's been in years past, and we'll talk more about this next week. They've got speed. I know they're not throwing the ball downfield very much. It's short to intermediate, but when you've got Hollywood Brown, who's back from a serious injury, but he's back, he's healthy, he can fly. And Worthy, guys, has been way ahead of schedule. He's way better than I thought. And they're not even using him deep downfield. It's a lot of run after the catch, short to intermediate, and make a big play out of it. You mentioned Clay Kelsey. You don't want them to keep getting opportunities. And the way that Hurts is protecting the football, you can't really count on turnovers. I just don't see it happening. I honestly, I don't. I'd be surprised if turnovers are a factor in this game. We'll see if I'm right or wrong, but I'd be surprised.
What do you think, Clay?
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. And the Eagles have 20 takeaways in the last 6 games. Okay, no stats more telling when it comes to wins and losses than takeaways. They're going to have to find a way to take the ball away. They're going against Patrick Mahomes. And I was talking to Matt Vermeer from Sports Illustrated just over the week at the Senior Bowl, and he covers the Chiefs. He has his own Chiefs podcast, and just talking to him, and he brought up some good points. He's like, front 4 pressure, and the Eagles got to be plus in the turnover margin just because of who Patrick Mahomes is. And I agree with that. And I think the Eagles have done a good job of taking it away and then holding on to the ball. But like you said, we got Xavier Worthy, 5+ catches in his last 6 games. This guy's become a weapon. They're going to him for a rookie. Early in the season, I know they were down on him, but of late, he's become their go-to guy, obviously, besides Travis Kelce. So you're going to have to limit those big plays. And obviously we know he can fly, but I do love the Eagles defensive backs. And I think they can do a good job, especially with a rookie. And you look at the receivers, Hollywood Brown, Juju Smith-Schuster actually had a big game. I think these are guys that they're not going to have a huge problem with, but Patrick Mahomes is going to spread it around. He's going to be efficient. And if you can get a punch out like you did last week, if you could sneak a couple turnovers here, I think it's more important for the Eagles, even though the Eagles do run that ball control style offense with obviously Saquon. We talk over and over again about Saquon. So I think the Birds get a couple turnovers, control the game with Saquon, win their battles outside with A.J. Brown one-on-one and Trent McDuffie because they're coming. And I think that's the recipe right there.
This ain't the little itty bitty teeny tiny bowl. This is Super Bowl LIX. Get in on the action at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of Super Bowl 59. Scoring touchdowns is key to hoisting the Vince Lombardi Trophy, and you have a shot to score big by betting on them at DraftKings Sportsbook, the #1 place to bet touchdowns. New DraftKings customers can bet $5 to get $200 in bonus bets instantly. So download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code BIRDSPREGAME, all one word. That's code BIRDSPREGAME for new customers to get $200 in bonus bets instantly when you bet just $5 only on DraftKings Sportsbook. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly on behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort. 21 plus age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. New customers only. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/audio. All right, I've thought about this a lot, fellas, and I promise you, and you guys know we don't do this. The whole contrarian, or you guys said this, so I'm going to say that. I've been thinking about this a lot, and probably I'm guilty of overthinking it. I think the Chiefs are the team that can least afford to turn the ball over to the Eagles. And I say that because, A, they have had to play turnover free. They're just like the Eagles. They very rarely turn the ball over, and they've won so many last minute possession games. Right? They are not an explosive offense. So, and they're not used to turning the ball over. The Eagles have had some games where they had it and overcome it. The Chiefs are very careful with the football because they have to be, because they are not an explosive team. So if the Eagles are up by 7 and Zach Bond punches one out and Orenberg scoops it up, returns it, and they're up 14, I'm not going to tell you the Chiefs can't come back from that. That's crazy, right? But what I am going to tell you is you force Andy Reid, famous passer Andy Reid, down 14 in the Super Bowl to start to think he's going to have to pass to get back into this game. And he's going to have to start hunting explosives. And the Chiefs have not proved this year that they can hit you with explosives. And this is now the number 1 defense in the league that they are going to have to prove it against, and a defense that is foundationally built on, we are not going to let you beat us up top. So now what you're going to have to do, if we're up 14, 10, 14, whatever, is work your way down the field, which the Chiefs are excellent at. I don't deny their ability to do that. But the other thing you have to do is then stop the Eagles from getting another explosive from their offense. And they have been, every single game, week after week, and including the playoffs, have been able to get 1 or 2 from Saquon Barkley. That has been a backbreaker when the defense thought it had it. And then Barkley, whoop, Washington goes down the field. 18 plays. They only get a field goal out of it, but they're thinking, we just had the Eagles defense on the field for 18 straight plays, right? Then what do the Eagles do? Bam, they give one Saquon Barkley handoff, and now it's 7-3, and you're like, great. You know what I'm saying? I believe the Eagles are the more explosive team offensively. Maybe not the greatest passing offense, but overall offensively. And if they're able to get 1 turnover, I think it makes it exponentially harder for the Chiefs to win the game, as opposed to if the Eagles turn the ball over once. I still think whether it's via ground or via pass, they'll be able to compensate for it. I could be totally wrong. I could have overthought it, but
those
I
some
put
good
a lot
points,
of thought
man.
into it,
Those are some good points. I'm changing my vote.
No.
I'm changing my vote.
We don't do that on the show, man.
No,
man,
no, you know what's going to
that was
happen?
some
You
good
change your
stuff.
vote, and then the game gets played, and you're like, Mosher, I should have not listened to you, man.
But that made a lot of sense, and valid points right there. That's good stuff.
All right,
I would add just real quick with what you were talking about. So, because the Eagles have a deeper pass target group, and AJ Brown now, he looked really good. He knows if he's 100%. Not that any player ever is, but he looked like his old self last week in championship game. Hurts ran the ball well, by the way. He looked good. He looked much better. Now that they're getting an extra week, we know that they had light practices this week, but now that they're getting healthier, and that to me, on your point about giving them Eagles extra possessions, that could be a problem, because we mentioned Goddard, AJ, Smitty, and Kellen Moore was dialing some stuff up last week, which he tried some stuff earlier this season, but nothing like this, the gadget plays inside the red zone. You just don't see that. That's the old Kellen from Dallas the fans used to scream at, Cowboys fans. They didn't like it because they didn't execute it. They would have loved to play if they would have worked. Clay's smiling because he knows the way it is with fans. Yeah. But they got the Eagles' mojo on offense right now, folks. They dialed up 55 total points, obviously. They got a lot going on right now. And and by the way, I'm going to take your question to another level. Who do you think benefited from the bye better? I'll send this back to you, Geoff.
Well, I would think that because of the injuries to Cam Jurgens and Landon Dickerson, like if they had to play, immediately, or the next week, that would have been very, very difficult. I'm sure they would have played because they're just animals, but it would have been difficult. I think the extra time really helps them in that regard. So just from a health standpoint alone, having your offensive line get that extra rest, I would think. That's my view. What do you think, Clay? The counter to that is that you just, Andy Reid, if he ever has an extra week to prepare, it's like almost over.
And I've been with Andy obviously on bye weeks before, and I think the extra weeks helping Philly just because they were so banged up, and I know the Chiefs are a little banged up too. But just getting Jalen, obviously he ran the ball great, but we didn't know what was going on with his knee. AJ Brown, okay, what's going on there? And then obviously the interior linemen, Dickerson, Jurgens, getting those guys ready to go. It's tough. It's tough because Spags, is going to game plan the heck out of this thing. He is going to see every rep. He's going to take advantage of that. You know how Andy is on the bye week. He's going to game plan the heck out of this thing. But you also know Vic Fangio is going to come in with a plan. But I think it probably helps the Chiefs a little more. And my thinking is Vic's a little more watered down defensively, and it's the number one defense in the league. But you're not going to see as many exotic looks or different things. You kind of know what to expect, and he's going to get his guys in situations to win battles, the one-on-one battles. Spags is a guy that might draw up some crazy stuff. He might be working on some blitz that you haven't seen all year, and he's going to bust it out when you least expect it against the Eagles. So I think that just because sometimes when you haven't practiced stuff that much and you want to hit a new wrinkle, it gives you a little extra time to practice that, work on the timing. If you're slanting, you're blitzing over here. If you're in a bunch formation, this guy's blitzing. But if they spread us out, this guy's blitzing. Okay, we're going to have an automatic blitz check if it is a bunch, because when you're in the bunch formation, it's hard to see who's coming. It's hard to see. And that's why at the end of that Buffalo game, when I see Buffalo come out with a bunch to the boundary against Spags, first thing I'm thinking, I go, okay, this is trouble. Because as you guys know, in blitzing, and when you're playing against a top-level quarterback, you're going to have a guy over the guy, the receiver, right? If somebody's blitzing, you're not just going to blitz a guy if you're over a receiver and you have nobody's there. You got a post safety, nobody's covering the guy. You're not going to try to bounce out a linebacker, right?
Right.
But if you're in a bunch formation, especially short side of the field, something like that, Spags is going to come up with some automatic checks. Okay, if the Eagles come out in this formation, we're going to check to these blitzes. And I think he does that probably more than any other coach in the league. And it just makes it harder to diagnose in those situations. So that's why I think the extra time could be better for the Chiefs, because they're going to have time to really formationally come up with their blitz checks, their coverage checks, and how they want to attack the Eagles.
Yeah, that was a great question, Adam. I mean, it almost seems like if you have to look at it through two different lenses. From a health standpoint, it benefits the Eagles. From a game planning standpoint, it's going to benefit the Chiefs. And I agree. I think that the coach who least changes what he does for this game is Vic Fangio.
Oh, no doubt. And Spags, we know Spags is going to be more aggressive. He's a really good blitzer. He calls them at the right times. He believes in his players. And I'll say this with Vic being a selective blitz caller. When he's done it at times, it's been very effective. He just doesn't want to do it. It's funny, Geoff. We got the blitz numbers over the years. We were looking at them, and we kind of had an idea. His blitz numbers are even lower than we expected.
Right.
He just doesn't. I get it. And look, they're so disciplined. I don't know if there's a real weakness you could attack if they're healthy on defense. I don't know if there is one right now. Sure, with N'Kobe Dean down, we thought Burks might be. His first game was a little shaky. The last two really good. So quite frankly, right now, guys, I don't know about you, as I said it back to you, Geoff, I don't know if there's a real weakness you could just crush the Eagles on defense.
No, definitely not. And that's why they've been the number one defense all year. And I definitely think they'll be prepared for this. And it just becomes can you execute at those clutch moments against the Chiefs, who are known for offensively executing themselves. And to your point, I think it was your point, Clay. Spags to me is sort of like the defensive version of Sean McVay, where sometimes people just want to say scheme, like but it's also feel. He has a really good feel for when to call certain plays. It's not just I'm going to blitz every single time. It's not just going to use this blitz every time. It's when to do it, when not to do it, when to make them think you're going to do it and not, and when to make them not think you're not, and then you're going to do it. And it's special. And that's why he's got as many rings as he does. So it's not just about the scheme. It's about just that feel for when to do things that I think he's really, really elite at. So let's close it up on. Let's close it on this. Okay, good. No.
I had one I wanted to ask you guys, and that is the Chiefs are very good against the run. And just real quick, they're giving up 3.8 yards per carry to running backs. That's the second best number in the entire NFL. Who do you guys think wins this battle? This is literally good on good. Saquon and the Eagles running game versus the Chiefs running defense. And I'm going back and forth on this one, watching the tape of the Chiefs stuffing the run and then watching the tape of Saquon busting the first run for 60 plus for a touchdown.
Oh, okay. I actually have a stat on this. So old friend Joe Banner, of our friend of our show, former Eagles president, he was on Colin Cowherd's show, and he had this really good stat. When the Chiefs run nickel, they give up 5.2 yards per carry. Okay. When they play base, they play the regular 43, not nickel, they give up 3.8 yards per carry. So with Saquon Barkley, the NFL's best running back, what's the counter to it? Like, because Spags likes to play nickel. Shamari Connor, we're going to talk more about him, has taken over as the nickel defender, more or less. So how will he approach it? Because you need to stack that box. There are we'll talk more about the linebackers next week. We actually break down the game with Nick Bolton and others, and Leo Chanel is playing well, pretty physical linebacker. They fill really well, man. They tackle well, they fill well. Clay, that's why their run defense is so good. They're very disciplined. And it's interesting because it's a lot of no-name guys. If you don't really follow the Chiefs much, a lot of guys don't know how great's maybe strong, but how good Nick Bolton is. But you're going to learn, folks. And a lot of the guys on the defense 2 years ago are back with the Chiefs this season.
Interesting. That is, I did not realize the stat disparity there between what they are in base.
That stunned me. Yeah, that was interesting.
But I mean, to the Chiefs' credit, if Spags want, because of course, if the Eagles are going to see that, they're going to come out in 11 personnel and try to get the Chiefs a nickel and run out of 11 personnel. That's what they do well. But the Chiefs probably can mix and match some of the. So they have some good linebacker safeties who can tackle, guys like Drew Tranquil, guys like Reed, right, who can probably give them a little bit more. I don't want to say like power in the run game, but they might try to play a modified base nickel where they have bigger nickel personnel out there to try and counteract whatever the Eagles might do out of 11.
Yeah, and I think that we saw the last couple weeks and didn't realize the Commanders are 28th in the NFL against the run. I mean, this was just a bad run defense. The Rams, bad versus the run. They're in the bottom 8 teams against the run. So this is going to be a much harder game to run the football. People think, oh, just give it to Saquon, give it to Saquon. Look what you did the last couple weeks. This isn't the same week. This is a completely different week. You had a completely different defense. So they're going to have to scheme up some things, find some holes, find some weaknesses. Great nugget there, Adam, about the nickel defense. Yeah, spread them out and run the football.
Interesting stuff. All right, last thing before we get out of here, I want take the quarterbacks out of it. Clay, who's the most important player on the field? Either team. Take the quarterbacks out of it.
Ooh, man, this is good. Quarterbacks out of it. I mean, the easy money would say, Saquon Barkley, because, he's the star running back. But I'm going to go back to the guy I've mentioned a lot, and that's going to be the Chiefs offensive line, Mike Caliendo. If this guy's playing in there and he gives up 10 pressures and you got Jalen Carter, Milton Williams, this is going to be a long game for the Chiefs. This is the one guy. You're a backup. You get thrust into this situation. If you can't perform, if you're not able to hold up in protection, you can change the outlook of this game because the interior of the Eagles defense is so good.
Adam, what do you think? Who's the most
important? It's funny. Yeah, I would go with 98 Carter. I mean, he is a home wrecker. He makes it easier. It's never easy, but he makes it easier for guys like Milton Williams to penetrate and do what he's done this season. He's been phenomenal, and just to me, and I know they rarely move Carter from where he lines up, but man, I want Carter over Mike Caliendo as much as I can. If Tooney's playing left tackle, I'm going to move Carter to end. I'm doing. I like what Clay said earlier. I'm taking advantage of those matchups any way possible. Sometimes as a play caller, whether you're on offense or defense, you've got to get out of your comfort zone when the matchups dictate it. And boy, the Eagles have beautiful matchups. If Caliendo is starting at left guard and Tooney is starting at left tackle.
Sky Motor Cars in Westchester is a different sort of dealership. All it takes is one look at their Highline pre-owned vehicles that people all over the country want and need. Owner Brett Schiller makes sure you don't spend a dime of your money before you purchase the car. Sky Motor Cars allows you to make all the decisions regarding your next vehicle. At Sky Motorcars, you never have to spend more than necessary. Visit SkyMotorcars.com today or call 610-918-7225.
This is why I love this. We all see the game the same way. And the amazing thing is there's 22 players on a field at one time. And I say take 2 out. So I limit it to 20. And what's the most important player? And we're all in that same box, right? Because Clay, you said Caliendo for the Chiefs. And I was on the same wavelength as Adam. I was thinking Jalen Carter is the most important player in this game to help determine the outcome, but positively for the Eagles and negatively for the Chiefs, to your Caliendo point, because, and I think you brought this up, like when you have to beat an all-time legend like Brady, it was the pass rush, right, for the Giants. It was the pass rush of the Eagles that did it. Although Brady did throw for 500 yards that day. So I can't really talk about it then. But Brandon Graham got the big sack from the inside rusher position. And I think Jalen Carter has the opportunity here to be a total game wrecker. No matter whether they double team him, single team him. I mean, this guy might wind up being tattooed to Patrick Mahomes if he gets the right matchup. And that would be Patrick Mahomes' worst nightmare. Now, I know he's used to going up against some pretty good players. Yeah, Ed Oliver for the Bills, right? And some good pass rushers on the edges for the Texans. But no one's been playing in the playoffs like Jalen Carter. This guy is like a man possessed. And I think he has like an opportunity to sort of single-handedly at times game wreck it for the Kansas City Chiefs. So that would be my pick, just like Adams. And we all see it the same way. Right in that little box there, that guard tackle matchup. And Adam, you're right. I imagine that you will see a lot of stunting from the Eagles defensive line, especially when they 4-man rush, to try to get Carter around the edge and get him some momentum going up against Tooney, who is, again, good guard, but at tackle, his footwork, his sets, his ability to deal with speed rushers on the outside or speed to power guys, that's all going to be tested against Josh Sweat and whoever is a defensive tackle that might be looping around there. So
the Eagles are the king. The Eagles are the kings of two things: stunts and sim pressures. More sim pressures than stunts. Yeah, but they like doing them.
Oh, they stunt a lot. Their stunts are
effective. They do. No, they're a stunning team, but they're kings of the sim pressures because Vic is not going to blitz. And as John T. Flippo told us, the Super Bowl winning Eagles quarterbacks coach at 17, Vic wants you to bleed. He wants you to be impatient at some point. How about that first series for Washington? 18 plays, they only scored 3 points.
Amazing.
That's what John was talking about. He goes, at some point, you're going to get impatient. You're like, enough of this. We've got to score. And maybe, because by the way, Andy's done this with Patrick Mahomes before we get out of here. When Patrick is holding on to the ball, he brings everything in. You're getting rid of the football. I'm not going to let you hold on to the football. And I'm going to be fascinated to see early on if it's vintage Fangio and they're not finding anybody open or Patrick's not comfortable, what happens? We'll see. We're going to learn early.
That loss to Tampa, Clay, that we were talking, I think that changed Patrick Mahomes' career for the better and early in his career, too. To lose a Super Bowl that early and learn that despite your superhuman tactics, despite your abilities to make plays that like 99.9% of other quarterbacks can't make, if you're going to hold on to that ball and try to make all these passes downfield while you're getting hit, while you're horizontal, I mean, he was literally throwing passes. Remember, he would be sideways and like a movie. The ball. That taught him that he can't do that anymore. And I think that's changed him for the better. But to Adam's point, you can still, if you're going to get to him, and he's going to big game hunt at some point. And if you can force a turnover there, or if you can hit him, you got yourself a good opportunity to win.
Love it.
All right, great stuff. That is an excellent roundtable. Clay, thanks so much. Really appreciate it. We know that you've been traveling like we are from Mobile and all over. So we will catch up with you certainly down the road, maybe after the Super Bowl as we recap it all. Will we see you in Mobile? I'm sorry, in New Orleans?
Still debating. I got a full week of work over here at the Chicago Sports Network, so I wouldn't be able to get out till Friday. So it doesn't really make sense, but you can send a thank you with me when I go back to Chicago for the Jalen Carter trade, because I think, like we all said, he is the difference in this game. And for me, as a covering the Bears guy, I'm still a little floored that they let that guy go for a 4th round pick.
Yeah. Who did they wind up taking with that 4th round pick?
Darnell Wright, who has had some success at right tackle.
No, that was their first round pick, right? That was their first round. That was the 10th or
4th round.
Yeah,
the 4th round. I think they Honestly, I couldn't even tell you. I think it was
traded it 7 times over. You know, like something Howie. Yeah. Well, either way, we'll assess that trade down the road one day. But yeah, right now it's Darnell Wright and then that player for Jalen Carter. I don't think it's measuring up. And not that Wright's been bad, but he's been hurt, right?
Yeah. He's Wright's been in and out, but he's been solid. Actually, he's a solid right tackle, but he's not this generational guy like Jalen Carter we talk about. This guy can rush from anywhere. He reminds me, I've told you guys this over and over again, of that J.J. Watt type guy playing with the Jaguars, seeing J.J. Watt twice a year, every year. He is just that guy that's game-changing. He can line up different spots. He can rush you from the outside, the inside, and he's slippery. He's got the wiggle, the speed, the power. He's got it all.
All right, great stuff. Clay, thank you so much. It's been an awesome Super Bowl roundtable here. For Clay Harbor, Adam Caplan, I'm Geoff Mosher. Catch you all on the next one.